Would you say there was some big cultural differences that you experienced when you actually went to university in the States?
Most people there would assume that I grew up in the States, where I'm not. So there were these obvious cultural cues that just didn't link up. I remember one time, so around Thanksgiving, there were like some parties and people were talking about having eggnog. And, at the time, I really had no idea what that was. They just like gave me that look, like they couldn't believe that I don't know what eggnog is.
Did you actually end up trying it?
Oh, yeah, that was quite the, that thick, sugary greatness.
Sugary, milky, great, yeah, the weirdest. Hey everyone, welcome to the show. My name is John Drummond, or Young Holland.
Hi, 大家好，欢迎回到 NG 英文，我是 Stephanie。今天的来宾是 Harrison Goldsmith， 他是一位创业家、web3 跟区块链的顾问以及贸易商。我们接下来欢迎我们的来宾吧。
We have a great episode for you today with my new friend Harrison Goldsmith. Harrison is an entrepreneur, a blockchain and Web3 consultant, an import and exporter, a man of opportunity, and so much more. So everyone, please welcome my new friend Harrison. What's up, brother?
Hey man, good to be alive.
Good day to be alive. You're right, my man. Well, Harrison, thank you for joining us today on NG Ingwen. You are so talented. You are using your Mandarin and your English skills right now to navigate import-export and more recently to navigate the whole world of blockchain and Web3. And so I was hoping you could give a little self-introduction. Who is the man, the myth, the legend, Harrison?
Oh man, 过奖了. I used to run an import-export business, mainly focused on mainly medical supplies and commodities, and also I've also been quite involved in startup for quite some time. Been running this blockchain-related consulting company since 2018.
Beautiful. That was very nice and concise right there. I love it. Don't waste any time. Yeah, man. And I was hoping we could kind of start today with the import-export side, because that ties really nicely later to the show into how you are navigating language and culture around the West and the East. So can you take us through a little bit, what are people focusing on with import-export? There's brokers, there's supply and demand. Can you take us through a little bit of a high level of that?
Yes, so I was in this at a time where the supply was much less than the demand. Therefore, trust and communication is extra important. It's different on typical day-to-day import-export, of course, but now currently import-export does have quite a lot of hardships. It's getting a bit rougher. So being able to appropriately communicate each other's needs and expectations, manage each other's expectations is the key of what makes things work.
Yeah, makes kind of all the logistics work. And are you focusing on import-export at all anymore, or are you completely out of that industry?
Yeah, lately I'm starting to work at it again, basically focusing on things of the most need. I'm also getting a little team together to help me out with those ventures.
Nice, very cool. And so are you focusing on that point at connecting the East to the West? Or, are you focusing mostly on importing and exporting within Asia?
So previously I have done, stuff from Asia to UK or the US. But also there's many times where it's East with East. And there's always slight cultural variations, but I would say East and West would have the biggest gap there. That requires the most communication and effort.
Yeah, no doubt. And what actually made you interested in import-export? I have a lot of friends who do it, but I'm like, how did you arrive at that conclusion?
I gotta say, I am somewhat of an opportunist, for the better or worse. When I see something, of demand or something big, I jump into it head first, not knowing a thing, and just work to swim in it and work in it.
That's a beautiful metaphor for life, my friend. And I'm guessing really that's a nice transition to how you got yourself into blockchain technology and Web3. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely.
That's awesome.
刚刚这段主要是探讨来宾在经营进出口贸易商的部分。那贸易商分为进口商 importer 或是出口商 exporter。那来宾他主要是出口东方的东西到英国、美国或是亚洲区域内进行进出口贸易。那来宾有提到他进入这个市场的时候，其实供 supply 大于需 demand， 所以当时有很多需要沟通与信任的地方才有办法促成生意。那他刚刚也提到了，贸易也有许多艰辛，也就是 hardships 的地方，并不是大家想象中的那么轻松。最后他有提到，他会接触贸易的原因是因为他是一位机会主义者，也就是 opportunist。他在看到机会之后，就毫无准备之下，整个栽进这个市场里了。也因为他这样的特性，所以他现在才会有机会接触到区块链以及 web3 的产业。
And so could you take us through a little bit? What are you doing in the world of web3?
So currently, I'm mainly working on advising for a few projects. This is mainly on business development related, essentially connecting clients to the right contacts, whether it's technical contacts, marketing contacts, or just business partners in general. I also help with doing research, essentially competitor analysis, or I guess other types of research that I may not be able to disclose at the moment. Yeah, and I guess generally, I like to help out in the space.
Yeah, man, it's so needed, someone who's been in the space for a long time to help people navigate as they enter into the space. So many VCs, a lot of money's moving in. We're sitting a bit in a bear cycle right now, a correction cycle, but in my opinion, a very healthy cycle to help builders, founders, think about what is the next thing to excite. With your insight as an advisor, can you kind of take us through some of the trends that you might predict for the next wave, the next cycle of people to get interested in blockchain technology?
Absolutely. Looking at it now, so our previous trends were a bit in the NFTs, and GameFi has been an up-and-coming trend, mainly in Southeast Asia for quite some time, mainly due to the guilds. I would say currently I do see a few up-and-coming potential trends. Well, first of all, for mining, I guess the trend is definitely happening quite a lot in South America. For GameFi and DeFi, and just exchanges in general, that seems to be happening and growing a bit more on the African continent. And just in general, I would say I can see that there's more interest in insurance-related solutions for the blockchain space, just because you see these crashes, so insurance, insuring assets from falling is definitely something that's up and coming. And we also see kind of like the move to earn thing that can potentially open up a whole new tangent of X to earn, in which we would have IoT devices that track people doing specific things to get incentivized doing so. But that one, not sure how that's gonna go, but looking good so far.
Yeah, I love that. And like you said, kind of this X to earn concept. X meaning here just insert new word of choice. Eat to earn, sleep to earn, and using the IoT Internet of Things concepts where you can have a wearable or your phone tracking you in real time, giving relevant data to these companies and rewarding you for that data. Is that right?
Correct.
Awesome, man. I think it's so cool. Yeah. And it's, it really reminds me to zoom out and remind myself, when we get too kind of concerned with these recession cycles, these bear markets, as we say in the industry, to zoom out and be like, hey, actually, there's a lot of cool people doing a lot of cool things, having a lot of inspiration to keep building. And it makes me think about, too, you mentioned with import-export, you saw an opportunity to be useful, to make money. Is that how you kind of essentially got into the blockchain space?
Well, actually, in a way, I would say getting into the blockchain space was a bit more ambiguous. Essentially, I've been hearing it in the background since like late 2016. It's just kind of there. And yeah, a friend of mine decided to start a company that focuses on education and events. And that's really when I really delve into it. And it's actually from a lot of translation, learning about the content and translating it and formulate it to turning it into content to educate people in Taiwan. So that's really where I started. That's where I learned a lot of the information, a lot of the background, and that's really what got me going.
So cool. Yeah, and to think about that, because we'll touch on that in a few minutes, but using your English skills, as you are half American, half Taiwanese, to gain all of that data in real time and then translate it and help educate and onboard people here in Taiwan. Is that the idea there?
It was mainly text translation. There were some videos also, but I guess that was that didn't do that much. It was mainly text translation.
Like article style?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I mainly focus on text and article style translation.
Very cool. Yeah, so putting out relevant content for people to consume in Mandarin Chinese as an article, a kind of blog post, maybe something like this. Very, very cool.
来宾说他在区块链这边担任的是 advising 建议与指导，那无论是要找 technical 技术、marketing 行销，或者是 business partners 生意伙伴，都是他的服务范围。那刚刚 John 有请他分享一下他认为在区块链中的 trend 也就是趋势。那来宾说他觉得之前是 NFT 曾经是趋势，但近期看到反而是跟 insurance related 保险相关的崛起。那如果是论不同的区域来说，南美洲的趋势是 mining 挖矿，那亚洲跟非洲的话则是 GameFi 游戏化金融跟 DeFi 去中心化金融。那来宾认为 X to Earn 的操作也将会是趋势。那 X to Earn 的意思就是把 X 就是带入其他东西，像是吃、好、睡等等的行为，然后借由公司收取这些资料之后回馈给这些使用者。例如前阵子很红的 Step N， 就是购买跑步鞋之后，只要你走路、跑步或是慢跑，都可以因为你买的鞋给予不同的虚拟货币报酬。那刚刚 John 有问他是因为有提到他是机会主义者，所以才踏入贸易圈，那他是不是也因为这样才踏入区块链的市场呢？那来宾其实觉得他自己是 ambiguous， 也就是他其实不明确、不确定，但是主要是因为他当时正在翻译一些区块链相关的教育内容，所以才开始真正接触到这个区域哦。
Well, Harrison, thinking if you can, kind of in the meta concept of what's next for you, do you want to be focusing on anything specifically in 2023 and beyond?
Well, I think, I have some really good clients or even partners that I'm working with. So I think, I just want to do my best to contribute what I can. So yeah, I'm here to stay on Web3. Yeah, it's an exciting journey.
Yeah, man. Love it. The conviction. We're here to stay. Very, very cool. Well, Harrison, do you mind if we switch gears a little bit into kind of the story of you? As I mentioned a little bit earlier in the show, you're half Taiwanese, half American. And so could you take us through a little bit, the mindset that you have of Eastern culture and Western culture?
Wow. Yeah, that's quite the big question there. Yes. So I was born and raised in Taiwan. I essentially grew up going to public school. That was quite the interesting experience. Was essentially back in the day. I was like one of the only mixed kids that was in school, so it was quite interesting. My environment was mainly Mandarin, and later on, I would spend the summers in the States with my family, of course. But being mostly growing up in a Mandarin environment, English was more like a second language. And it actually took quite a lot of time and effort to really learn it. Yeah, I literally listened to ICRT every day, like even in my sleep, like, no joke. But yeah, it took a long time, and I went to public school until I was in middle school, and still I was more like ESL. So yeah, it was quite a lot of time and effort. I eventually went to Taipei American School in high school and went to university in the States. And yeah, I guess by that time my English was good enough.
Yeah, man. Hey, shout out ICRT. What's up? Love that. We would play it while you're sleeping too. That's so cool. And so thinking then a little bit about that transition, right? I know Taipei American School does a great job to acclimate you to what it might be like in the US, right? That full English immersion. But would you say there was some big cultural differences that you experienced when you actually went to university in the States?
Absolutely. I would say probably, it took quite a while to adjust. And for me, it's especially interesting because most people there would assume that I grew up in the States, where I'm not. So there were these obvious cultural cues that just didn't link up. I remember one time, I think it was Thanksgiving, and then people were talking about eggnog, and I never heard about this eggnog thing, and it was quite the shock, really. So around Thanksgiving, there were like some, Thanksgiving gatherings, and parties, and people were talking about having eggnog. And, you know, at the time, I really had no idea what that was. And they just gave me this look, you know, they just like gave me that look like they couldn't believe that I don't know what eggnog is. But I literally, had no idea. And there were just numerous similar instances that were like that, where people would assume that I was there, I knew everything about it, but I really didn't.
Yeah, oh my god, eggnog. What a weird word, too, when you think about it. Eggnog. But did you actually end up trying it? Did you did you have it?
Oh, yeah, that was quite the, that thick, sugary greatness.
Sugary, milky, great. Yeah, the weirdest concoction, but sometimes if you add Baileys to it, it's even better.
Oh, yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, that's what I always am curious about with my friends that have grown up in Taiwan, and when they actually did go to the US, and everyone just assumes that they've been there the whole time, but yeah, you're like, what are all these random things?
刚John有提到，来宾其实是一半台湾人，一半美国人。那来宾是出生并生长于台湾，而且从小就在台湾的公立学校就读，只是后来暑假的时候才会回到美国，所以对他而言，其实英文算是第二语言。那他上到中学的时候才转到台北美国学校，然后后来才去美国读大学。那当时英文才真的算是比较好一点。那虽然说来宾是读台北美国学校，但是后来他去美国读大学的时候，还是有一些文化的冲突，因为其实很多人会认为他是在美国长大的，但是其实会有一些他无法理解的文化习俗，例如感恩节 Thanksgiving 的时候，就因为会有很多派对跟聚会等等，所以他们有提到一个美国感恩节会喝到一种饮料叫做 eggnog。 那其实 eggnog 它是用牛奶、蛋、奶油、糖、白兰地或是莱姆或 whisky 制成的一个调酒，而且就像 John 说的，我真的觉得加 Baileys 比较好喝。我刚刚是讲 Baileys 吗？对，但是呢，我能理解来宾的感受，因为其实我自己本身也是台北美国学校的学生，但是呢，我跟他比较不同的是，我是后来去读台湾的大学。那在台湾大学的时候，我其实也有一种文化冲击，因为当时我不太能理解暧昧这个词，因为其实在西方文化里面是并没有一个直接的对应词，所以我当时比较能够理解的方式就是 dating。但是在我解释之后呢，我发现其实他们觉得 dating 有点太严肃了，好像真的有一种束缚，而暧昧比较像是那种可能说不清的感觉。对，所以我觉得其实这样是一个非常有趣的体验。
Thinking about though, do you remember anything during your times, maybe in that transition to Taipei American School, that actually helped you learn English? I know you were using English sometimes in your house, but do you remember anything that really helped? Some actionable tips and advice maybe some of our audience could use?
I guess besides going to specific environments and gathering that expose you to all English speakers, when I was growing up, there was there were textbooks. I mean, that was it was all right. It definitely helped. Besides that, playing video games that are in English really helped because in order to get the story or, complete the quest, like being able to understand most of it really pushes you forward and it's fun. And last but not least, just getting into, specific, like music, really getting into the lyrics and learning about them. So could sing along with it and know what they're saying. That was definitely quite helpful also. And of course, ICRT.
Hey, there it is. Nice plug. Yeah, man. So cool, Harrison. And so thinking then about your work, I know you were mentioning a little bit in the beginning of the show, import-export, you're really dealing with actually import and export of character and culture. Could you speak a little bit more onto how are you bridging that gap with the Eastern culture, with the Western culture?
Yeah, I definitely see there's some pretty obvious cultural differences. Doing what I do, there's obvious difference between the Eastern and Western cultures. For example, for the older generation in the Eastern culture, you gotta get to know them a lot. You gotta go to all these banquets and drink gaolang with them. Like it takes a while to gain their trust and finally do something. Whereas older generation in Western, at least from my understanding, it's pretty straightforward. And if you can show that you got what they need, like it's pretty easy. You don't have to go through all these traditional rituals. And I guess for the younger generation, it kind of flipped upside. It's like the other way around. Whereas for an Asian culture, the younger generation, from what I see, everything's really fast and direct. Calls can be done in 10 minutes even. Whereas the Western culture and younger generation tend to, you gotta talk a lot of things, not even about the business, about personal interests, etc. And it takes a while to finally get to the business. So that's a very big key cultural difference that I see. So when I was first starting out, when I'm more of a translator role, I feel like I'm more of a filter. I take information from one side and I have to filter it, reformat it, and bring it to the other side to make sure the obvious differences get translated through, sometimes with its own spin, so that the other side can get it. And now I feel like it's, in a way it's similar, but except being a filter, I'm more like a gift packager. I repackage information from both sides and essentially represent it and make it a fancy gift so that I can fulfill the needs from both sides.
What an incredible skill set. Yeah, really fun insight right there too, to think about how it is almost flipping in the West right now. And the younger generation, yeah, they might seem distracted a little bit, but they're actually like, no, I want to make sure we connect about culture and pop culture before we do business together. And in the East, it's like, hey, let's get down to business, So it's fun to have those glasses, those lenses that you can apply both to the East and the West. Very, very nicely said. Awesome, Harrison. Well, unfortunately, we are coming to the end of the show here on NG Ingwen. And a question I'd love to end with is if you could go back and talk to a younger Harrison before you knew how to gift wrap the East and the Western culture so beautifully.
来宾有提到他会给大家学习英文的建议，就是把自己放在一个全英文为主的环境，或是多看书、听音乐，去理解歌词，或者是透过游戏去学习。毕竟你会需要理解任务才有办法破关。那当然最后就是要听 ICRT 咯。那来宾也有说，他其实在贸易中看到有一些文化差异，其实也随着年龄层有一些改变。比如说他看到老一辈的亚洲人是非常在意应酬这一块，而西方人是非常直接的，你只要达到他们的需求就可以了。但反而是现在的年轻一辈的亚洲文化是更迅速直接的，那反而西方文化那边他们会觉得说做生意时要有一些交流，无论是个人兴趣啊，或者是他们流行文化。那最后来宾他认为他自己的角色比较像是一个要重新包装的人，那他需要 filter 也就是过滤，以及 reformat 就是重新格式化之后成为双方都能理解的讯息。
Would there be any advice you give yourself about life or language, business, anything?
I'd tell him to buy Bitcoin.
Oh my god, you're like the 5th person that said that recently. It's amazing.
Well, I would say I would tell him, sometimes when things don't go well and mistakes happen, to not get so affected by it, because to not get swallowed by it and essentially get depressed, I guess, because mistakes, things do happen, bad things do happen, people do make mistakes, and it's the consistency of falling down and getting back up that really it's like the big picture progression that really matters. So yeah, don't let the small things get to you too much and just keep eagerly learning.
Beautifully said, beautifully said.
最后来宾给大家的一些建议就是生活中本来就是会犯一些错误，或是有一些不好的事情发生，但是千万不要因为这些小事绊倒你或是吞噬你。那我们就谢谢今天来宾 Harrison.
Stepping back, zooming out again, remembering that everyone does stumble along the way. To stumbling up is the idea, though. Staying focused on not getting overly consumed, which can cause the depression. So beautifully said. Awesome, Harrison. Well, where can people find more of your life online? Maybe a LinkedIn profile, anything?
You can definitely hit me up on LinkedIn. You can search Harrison Goldsmith, as it sounds, and that's where you can find me.
Awesome, Harrison. Harrison Goldsmith, the man, the myth, the legend. Buy Bitcoin, he says. Not financial advice. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Goodbye, everybody.
All right. Peace. All right. Well, that is our NG Ingwen show for today. We hope everyone enjoyed listening to that. You can connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and now Spotify. You can search NG Ingwen, or you can search on IG, NG English ICRT. And don't forget to tune in every Wednesday morning from 6:30 to 7, and Wednesday night from 9 to 9:30. We'll catch you on the next episode. Bye-bye.